good afternoon. I do hope after the previous lunch, just a bit relax and start getting into the things. I'll just make a brief about Krishnamurthy. Personally, I know him for quite some time, but it's the first time I'm in a formal occasion I'm going to introduce him. Mr. Krishnamurthy is holding the post of Deputy General Manager in Thick Shop Unit of BHEL Corporation. He's looking after activities of an advanced coal research center, and is actively engaged in the development of fluids with gasification-based integrated gasification combined cycle technology. He has gained considerable experience in the design, operation, and modeling of coal gasification plants. He has handled the responsibility of performing process design and also evolving operation methodology for demo-scale gasification and IGCC plant. He has acquired expertise in conducting gasification kinetic studies and developing kinetic models. He is managing a well-equipped coal-based analytical laboratory. In addition to this, I would like to state, we have worked together for quite some time, the past and present also, in the present gasification technology, wherein we are the pioneers in fluid-based gasification. It's a homegrown technology compared to any other technology. So gasification is a BHEL's own product. Now I request Mr. Krishnamurthy to take over the session. Thank you.
Good afternoon to all of you. First of all, I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to give a talk on this IGCC technology. Well, IGCC technology is another coal-based power generation technology. It's a very promising alternative to conventional thermal power. So, this presentation will tell you why it is. I will touch upon some basics of this core and other thing. First of all, now as of today, the total power generation capacity in India stands at 2,06,445 megawatt, out of which this thermal power alone contributes 1,37,386 megawatt. This thermal power derives its power from three fuels: coal, gas, and diesel. This coal alone contributes 1,17,283 megawatt. It's about 85% of the thermal power. And in total, if you see, is coal alone contributes to about 55% of the total power produced in India. So that shows the importance of coal as a fuel for power generation and for sustaining for a long-term energy security. Now we have to depend on this coal because the other fuels like oil or natural gas, their prices are very high and they are available in limited quantities in India. So we have to use coal for a long time to come. Now, this kind of scenario calls for efficient utilization of these coal resources and with minimal impact on the environment. Now, with this background, now I will go into the main presentation. Now, this presentation will cover the basics of coal, like how coal is formed underground, then its role of these coal characteristics, then the reaction chemistry followed in a boiler and a gasifier like combustion reactions and gasification reactions. Then the types of gasification processes available commercially and their applications with respect to various types of coals. Then the conventional thermal power cycles as well as the combined cycle power cycles, that explanations. Then the main topic, that is the integrated gasification combined cycle, what is it and what are their advantages. Then the current world scenario of IGCC technology. Finally, our BHL's, our company BHL's gasification and IGCC developments. And finally, as a summary, I will conclude what is the status of our BHL technology. Now, we move on to the coal origin and Indian coal reserves. So, you may all be aware there exists a global carbon cycle in which this carbon dioxide gas exists in equilibrium between Earth and its surroundings. Now, plants prepare food through photosynthesis process by absorbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Then these plants are eaten by animals. Then when these dead plants and animals, they undergo decay, they release carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. These dead plants and animals, when they get buried underneath the earth, they gradually transform and form fossil fuels. This is where the coal originates. Now, this was how coal was formed. The coal which is mined today has formed over hundreds of millions of years ago from the dead plants which got buried underneath the earth. Now, these dead plants, when they got buried underneath the earth, they gradually transformed to various ranks of coal, like from dead plants to peat, then to lignite, then to coal. Basically, the transformation means the carbon gets concentrated and the other extraneous materials get out of this coal formation. Now, this shows the distribution of coal reserves across various Indian states. Now, coal reserves are seen mostly in Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Orissa, Jharkhand, West Bengal, Assam, Meghalaya, and lignite reserves are seen mostly in Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, Rajasthan, and in some parts of Kashmir. It's estimated about 260 to 285 billion tons of coal reserves are available in India. Now I'll move on to the coal characteristics. Why coal characteristics are important in the design of boilers and gasifiers. Now, what is coal? Coal is a very complex material because it consists of hundreds of organic and inorganic compounds, depending upon the type of coals which are used. And it's composed of microscopically distinguishable. You can view each individual grains in a microscope. It has a physically distinctive appearance, and it comprises chemically different organic substances called naturals and inorganic substances called minerals. They basically comprise these organic compounds and inorganic compounds as well as pure carbon, plus some molecules which are built in. The coal has a complex molecular organic structure, and carbon is the primary element in coal. It exists in two forms. One is pure carbon, solid carbon, and the other one is volatile carbons. Two forms it is existing. Then hydrogen, sulfur, oxygen, nitrogen are the secondary elements present in coal. Now, this slide shows the different analytical techniques being used to characterize coal so that proper design of boiler and gasifier can be made based on the data which you generate out of these characteristics. Now, the primary analysis is the chemical, estimating the chemical composition of coal. It can be done under three events, that is proximate analysis. This proximate analysis gives rise to physical quantities in coal, like moisture, total volatile matter, then fixed carbon, and finally the ash. And this ultimate analysis gives rise to the elemental composition of coal. Like the previous slide I have told you, it contains carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, sulfur. Those individual elemental composition can be determined through this ultimate analysis. The calorific value. It is, maybe you are all aware, it is the quantity of heat evolved when a unit mass of fuel is burned. So that is a very important parameter in the design of boilers and gas engines. The coal also exhibits some kind of swelling and baking characteristics when it is heated, and they differ from coal to coal. That has been indexed by several techniques using equipments. And it is called FSI, it is a free swelling index. It will differ from coal to coal. So this free swelling index or ROVA index or dilatation is basically to measure how much swelling is there in coal when it is heated. Then this petrographic analysis. This basically measures the different types of organic compounds present in coal, and also based on that, the rank of a coal will be decided. And another important property is physical properties. First, the grindability. Now, in a conventional power plant, coal is pulverized to fine particles. So, this grindability index has to be estimated for each coal, so that it can give an assessment of the grinding power or a pulverized. So that is one important characteristic. Then surface area and porosity. These two are another important characteristics with which you can estimate the reactivity of a coal. Once you understand the surface area, surface characteristics, how reactive coal it can be assessed using these parameters. Then chemical structural analysis. This can be done by using this C30 NMR spectrometer and Fourier transform infrared analyzer. Basically, you have seen the previous slides on complex molecular or organic structure, where you will have a lot of functional groups, like hydroxyl groups, carboxyl groups, amine groups, like that several functional groups will be there. All those things can be estimated using this. Then the mineral analysis, very important analysis from the point of view of its behavior in the conventional power plant boilers. This mineral analysis, one is the ash composition by wet chemical analysis. And the other one is CCSEM, that is computer controlled scanning electron microscope. You can estimate the size of a mineral, the type of a mineral, and the composition of mineral in its natural. You can through microscope, you can view each individual grains and determine its size, composition. Type of a mineral mean in coal, the minerals either it will be embedded in the coal matrix or it will be lying independent. So if it is located independently in a coal powder, it's called excluded mineral. If it is lying inside the matrix of coal, it will be included mineral. So all those things can be determined using this computer control scan. Then when coal is heated, it emits some kind of gaseous matter. Those things also can be estimated using instruments. One or two main analysis I will show you here. I already told you that is proximate analysis gives this moisture, volatile matter, fixed carbon, and finally ash. Just by heating it to different temperatures, you can get all those things. Then ultimate analysis gives you the elemental composition of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, sulfur, and oxygen. By different analytical techniques, these things can be estimated in a lab. Another important characteristic is an ash fusion characteristics. Now, this can be assessed in a furnace with a provision for a microscopic window. As the ash is heated, you can view through microscope the transformation of ash to various conditions. Now, first initially the ash will be made in the form of a core, and then the temperature will be raised. When the top of the ash, the core begins to make a round, that is called this initial deformation temperature. When this height and the base is equal, it's called a spherical temperature. Then the base is twice the height, it is hemispherical temperature. Finally, when it becomes a fluid, the ash becomes a fluid, it is called fluid temperature. This will be different for different coals. That is why it's very important from the standpoint of boiler operating parameters, or setting up the boiler operating parameters, it will be very important. Now, based on this proximate analysis, we will be knowing the volatile matter, the fixed carbon, all those. Based on that, these coals are classified. Now, there are four broad classifications of coal. That is, one is this anthracite, then bituminous, then subbituminous, and then lignite. And then there are some subgroups within that. These are classified based on the proportion of this fixed carbon and the volatile matter. For the higher ranked coals, that is bituminous and some portion of this anthracite and some subgroups of bituminous. The other groups, classifications, that is subbituminous and lignite, will be classified based on their proportion of calorific value of the fuel. So this is how the coals are classified. That is, and this anthracite will be the least reactive because it has got more carbon and less volatile matter and less inorganic matters. And this lignite will be the most reactive, but it is a very low rank coal. It's considered as a very low rank coal. It has got more volatile matters and less fixed. And further, Indian coals are graded into various types of, that is A having the highest calorific value and G having the least calorific value. The general characteristics of Indian coals are shown here. That is, most of the coals have ash contents in the range 35 to 45%, and sulfur less than 1%. And it is moderately reactive, and its ash fusion temperature is always more than 1300 degrees centigrade, and it has got very high silica and alumina, and the ash is characterized by its highly abrasive character, and it slags. In a conventional power plant, it has medium slagging tendency because of the inorganic constituents present in coal. Now, because by realizing the importance of these coal characteristics, which play a role in the smooth operation of the boiler, DHL has set up an exclusive coal research center. And this is the front elevation of the coal research center, which is set up. Just a year back it was inaugurated. And this center has about 22 equipment. This first 5 equipment, that is proximate analyzer, ultimate analyzer, bomb calorimeter, sulfur detonator, FTIR spectrometer. All these will be used to determine the chemical composition of the coal. Then this thermogravity analyzer and differential scanning calorimeter, they will be used to assess the thermal characteristics, like the reactivity of coal with respect to combustion reactions and gasification reactions. Then this differential scanning calorimeter measures the heat flows associated while heating a coal. Whether sometimes some coals will evolve heat, some coals will absorb heat. Those heat flows can be determined using this differential scanning calorimeter. Then this high temperature X-ray diffraction spectrometer and CCSM. They are mainly for characterizing these minerals, which are already explained. Then this particle characteristics. There is particle density, particle surface areas, then particle size distribution. All this can be assessed using this particle size analyzer for particle size distribution and surface area and core analyzer for surface characteristics. The zeta meter is to measure the stability of a cold slurry suspension, fine powder suspension, can be assessed. This gas spectrometer gives the density of the particle. This is a PM 2.5 micron particle used to measure the dust concentration in a gaseous stream. Then these other 7 equipment. These 7 equipment are used to make an environmental impact assessment in a power plant. All sorts of the gaseous compounds, what type of pollutants it is emitting, all those things, trace elements, pollutants like sulfur oxide compounds, nitrogen oxide compounds, and, all those things can be assessed. Mercury content in gas, all those things can be assessed using these equipment. Now, we'll move on to the reaction chemistry in a boiler furnace. Now, in a boiler, coal is burned with air and it liberates heat when it undergoes combustion reaction. That heat is utilized for raising steam. So here, the mechanism is shown here. There is a coal and air. They are injected into the boiler furnace, and it creates a turbulence so that an efficient contact is established between coal and air. Sufficient resident time is provided, and the required temperature is maintained. It's about the conventional boiler. The temperature will be about 1400 to 1450 degrees centigrade. So under those conditions, coal and air react to form the flue gas, and it liberates heat. This heat will be utilized for raising steam. And along with this oxidized form of this coal, that is carbon dioxide, water vapor, and oxygen. These are the major components. Then some of the trace components are also coming out along with coal gas. That is nitric oxide, nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, trace metals. This is the reaction chemistry involved in a boiler furnace. Now, this is a scheme of a conventional thermal power plant where coal is pulverized, and the pulverized coal along with the air is injected into the bottom of this boiler furnace. Here the steam coils are introduced inside the furnace. The coal and air react and they release enormous amount of heat. This heat is transferred to these steam coils. Water gets evaporated, superheated, and that superheated steam comes to steam turbine, expands through that, generates power. Then this steam is condensed and again brought back to boiler furnace. The flue gas, when it travels up, goes through a series of gas cleaning devices. One is the selective catalytic reduction NOx for removal of NOx compounds. Then ESP, electrostatic precipitator, for removal of fine particulates. Then desulfurizer to remove all sulfur dioxide compounds, that is called as SOx compounds. This other than ESP, these two will be optional. It can be used there depending upon the situation where the power plant is located. So this is how the conventional power plant works. And here the steam cycle which is shown in a conventional power plant follows Rankine cycle. A Rankine cycle is condensed water is pressurized to a pump. Then this pressurized water is evaporated and superheated in a boiler. Then that superheated steam expands through turbine and does a useful work. Then that expanded steam is condensed in a condenser. Again the cycle goes on. Now, if you see this cycle, this superheated steam expanding through turbine only does the useful work. So you recover the heat only from the superheated state. The latent heat is totally lost. That is why this cycle suffers from loss of efficiency. Its total converts that the total plant efficiency using this cycle will be relatively lower. And here a typical scheme is shown where the heat flows of the various streams are shown here. Now, if 100 thermal units are available in a core which is fed to the boiler, finally you are seeing 38% of the thermal unit converted to electricity. The balance 62 is lost to various speeds. And the main loss is in the condenser through latent heat. Now, coal gasification. This coal gasification is another process which offers a promising alternative to this combustion-based power plant. So, gasification process is nothing but is a conversion of a solid or liquid fuel to gaseous fuel, a partial combustion. You will see the reaction chemistry behind. Now here in a boiler furnace, you saw only coal and the air are being injected. Now in a gasifier, coal, air and steam are also injected. Then here, depending upon the type of the gasifier, the temperatures will be maintained different. And here also enough turbulence is created to have very good contact between the coal particle and the reactant media, that is air and steam. They react and they form a fuel gas comprising carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, hydrogen, methane, water vapor, nitrogen. Along with that, some minor concentrations of this ammonia, hydrogen sulfide, carbonyl sulfide, and trace metals. This is called a syngas. Depending on the type of, if you use air, you will get a very rich syngas with a higher calorific value. If you use air, you will have a lower calorific value. The reactions which are happening now, the difference between combustion and gasification reactions will be explained here. That is, in a gasifier, these gasification reactions are endothermic. That means it absorbs heat. So, we are also adding air here so that part of the coal undergoes combustion, liberates heat. The balance coal undergoes gasification, it absorbs those heat. So, we have to design a gasifier depending upon the type of coal. This proper proportion of this combustion and gasification have to be matched to get a reasonable calorific value of the gas. So, these are all the combustion reactions. There is carbon with oxygen with carbon dioxide, then hydrogen with oxygen giving water vapor. The gasification reaction is this one, this Boudard reaction, where this generated carbon dioxide will react with carbon and forms carbon monoxide. This is an endothermic reaction. And the another reaction is this water gas reaction. That is carbon with steam giving carbon monoxide and hydrogen. This is another gasification reaction. The principal gasification reaction. This is also an endothermic reaction. Then this third gasification reaction is this hydrogasification reaction. Carbon with the hydrogen giving ethane. And finally, when all these gaseous products they mix and they go up the reactor, they undergo this shift reaction. That is this carbon monoxide and steam giving carbon dioxide and hydrogen. This is how the reaction chemistry is there in a gasifier. Now, what are all the advantages of this gasification process? First, I will touch upon the applications of gasification in a refinery sector. Now, as you have seen, the reaction chemistry in a gasifier is coal, when it is given to coal gasification plant, it produces a syngas mixture. Now this syngas mixture can be used for various applications. It can be used for generation of power through IGCC, the integrated gasification combined cycle. That same gas with slight modification in the process can also be used for generation of hydrogen or synthetic natural gas, that is methane, or can also be used for production of liquid fuels. Can also be used for production of these chemicals and fertilizers, like chemicals, this methanol, fertilizers, urea. All those things can be made using this synthesis gas. So it has versatility. It's very versatile. This process is very versatile for various end users. Now in a refinery, this process is very advantageous the refinery sector, because if you see that in the refinery they use this liquefied natural gas. Now for a period of time, this LNG price is increasing like anything. Whereas the refinery, they produce this petcoke, and their price is reasonably constant all through years. Now using this petcoke, you can gasify and generate syngas. And that syngas can substitute this liquefied natural gas. So you can reduce the import cost and it will be at a lesser cost. So this is very advantageous in the refinery sector. Here again, that syngas cost and this liquefied natural gas, that cost has been compared. Especially after 2007, it has become very attractive. There is a big difference. There is LNG cost is $12.8 per million BTU, and syngas will be about 9.2, and petcoke is about 3.7. So because of this huge price difference, now gasification process in a refinery sector is very attractive. Here it explains how gasifier can be integrated with a refinery. Because refinery needs this hydrogen, synthetic natural gas, and syngas. So this gasifier can take this petcoke, produce these gases, and supply to refinery. Similarly, how this syngas is substituting this LNG in a refinery. This liquefied natural gas is used in a refinery for producing power and steam and hydrogen. And in place of LNG, syngas can be used for all these end products. And it will be at a lesser cost. Now the gasification for power generation, I will touch upon later. Before that, I will just give you the details of different types of gasifier. Then I will go to the IGCC. So, there are three types of gasifiers, gasification processes basically. Here it shows the moving bed gasifier, where this uses very coarse particles, about 6 to 15 millimeter, and it is kept in a packed bed condition inside. Coal is fed from the top, the ash is removed from the bottom. Air and steam is passed counter current to the bed. So, then the gas will exit from the top. Now, this is the temperature profile of this moving bed gasifier. That is, the coal, when it is fed from the top, it gradually rises in temperature. Then this is at this peak temperature where air enters inside the gasifier. The combustion reaction takes place. Afterwards, it undergoes gasification reaction, devolatilization reactions, then coal gets dried, and all these get transformed into gas, and the gas exits outside. And the coal which is converted finally gets removed as ash from the bottom. So here we are using coarse particles, 6 to 15 millimeter. Now in an entrained flow gasifier, pulverized fuel is used, and pulverized fuel, either dry or the form of slurry, is fed along with oxygen from the top, and they all flow downward. And there will not be any bed inside the entrained flow gasifier. It's all fine powders, so all the fine powders flow like gas along with the gas. But very high temperature is maintained. It's about 1400 degrees centigrade. It's maintained. So its particle residence time is very, very, very low. It's about 3 to 4 seconds. But within that time, it undergoes gasification and produces fuel gas. That is the characteristic of this entrained flow gasifier. And the ash is removed as slags here. It's melted and removed as slags. Now, fluidized bed gasifier. Here, a distinct bed is maintained with coarse particles. And cold field will be about assorted size, about 0 to 6 millimeter will be used. And air and steam will be admitted from the bottom. And the velocity will be maintained in such a way that it will fluidize the particles. And if you just look at it from the top, it will be like a bubbling liquid, boiling liquid. It will look, that is, so it will have very efficient contact between the gas and solid. And because of this efficient contact, its temperature is very moderate. Within 1000 degrees centigrade, we are able to convert coal to gas. Now, the comparison of different gasifiers in terms of its various parameters is shown here. The basic thing is the difference is coal size. For entrained flow, it is less than 250 microns. For moving bed, it is 5 to 30 millimeter. And for fluidized bed, it is about 0 to 6 millimeter. And entrained flow gasifier cannot take more than a coal with more than 15% ash. And a moving bed up to 25%. And a fluidized bed can accept even up to 55-60%. The ash is removed in the form of slag from the entrained flow gasifier. The moving bed has got both forms, dry or slagging, and fluidized bed mostly dry. Another important limitation for entrained flow gasifier is the coal ash melting temperature should be less than 13 to Whereas even for a moving bed, that slagging moving bed gasifier also should have ash content. The melting temperature has to be less than 30. Whereas this fluidized bed doesn't have any limit mark. It's a basic difference between these processes. Now, BHEL has adopted this fluid bed gasification technology for high ash coals. So, the advantages of this fluidized bed gasifier over other gasifiers are shown here. That is, in a fluidized bed gasifier, higher velocity is maintained because it has to fluidize the bed particles. So, because of that, it can process higher coal throughput per unit area of process. Then you can accept all finer coals, right from, because particle size ranges from 0 to 6 millimeter. So it can accept very assorted size of coals. Then it operates non-slagging mode. That is, its temperature is about 1000 degrees centigrade. So you don't have to melt the ash. That is another important advantage. Then it doesn't generate any tar or oil for any oil. So the gas cleaning will be very simple here. And it has got a very lower capital and operating cost compared to this entrained flow gasifier because it can use air instead of oxygen. And it is the best suited technology for high ash coals from techno-economic considerations. It is government appointed one expert committee. They went into the technical and economic details of all these gasification processes. Finally, they concluded that pressurized fluidized bed gasification will be the most appropriate technology for high ash coals. And BHEL has got extensive experience in the design and operation of these large size fluidized bed gasification plants. So that is another advantage for BHEL to go in for this fluidized bed gasification plants. process. Now I will talk about this integrated gasification combined cycle. What is integrated gasification combined cycle? Now, in an integrated gasification combined cycle, you have a gasification plant which produces fuel gas, syngas. That syngas is fired in a gas turbine. That hot pressurized gas expands through gas turbine to produce power. Then the gas which is coming out of the gas turbine will be still hot. It's about, the temperature will be about 500 degrees centigrade. So again it goes through a heat recovery steam generator to raise steam. And that steam will be expanded through steam turbine to generate power. So you have two cycles here. Gas turbine cycle, steam turbine cycle. That's why it's called a combined cycle. And why it is integrated? Because here many process streams are integrated here. That is, now this gas turbine has an inbuilt compressor. This compressor delivers air to gasifier. So air streams are integrated. Then this fuel gas, when it travels from the gasifier, it goes through a heat recovery boiler, generates superheated steam. And that superheated steam is is a saturated steam. That saturated steam is superheated in a heat recovery steam generator. So that is another stream which is interconnected here. Then this is steam cycle. This steam cycle, the steam fluid is interconnected with this heat recovery steam generator. Like that, several streams are interconnected together. That's why it's called integrated gasification combined cycle. Usually, the gasifier, say it is a fluidized bed gasifier, it coal, air and steam are used. Air is supplied by this GD compressor. Steam is supplied by this heat recovery steam generator. And they produce fuel gas, hot fuel gas, goes through a heat recovery boiler to generate steam, and the gas gets cooled to some level. Then it goes through a gas cleaning, where the fine particulates are removed through a handle filter, then trace contaminants are removed by using a wet scrubber, then sulfur compounds are removed using some desulfurizer, then finally this clean gas is burned in a heating combustor along with air from this gas turbine compressor. Once it is burned, at constant pressure it is burned. So that hot pressurized gas expands through this turbine, feed hoppers. This one is a cyclone. The gas which comes from the gasifier enters the cyclone and then goes to gas cleaning system. And these are all different views of that particular plant. This is the control panel for that atmospheric fluidized gasifier. This is the main gasifier. Then this is a cyclone, coal feeder hoppers. And this is the gas which is coming from the gasifier to cyclone. All these things are shown in this picture. And this is in addition to these hot test facilities, Neogen has also set up some cold model to establish the fluidization characteristics of different solids. Before a bed material is used in a hot test facility, the several materials will be tested. This cold model is fluidizer, and all operating parameters like operating velocity, bed material fluid size distribution, all those things, bed height, everything will be assessed using these cold model facilities before we go into hot model. Then the kind of R&D studies conducted in these small facilities are shown here. That is, it was tested with different fuels, all operating parameters like air steam ratios, cold to air ratios, all those things were optimized for different fuels. Then the air steam blast temperature, on the effect of air steam blast temperature on gasifier performance, terms of carbon conversion, in terms of the gas calorific value, all those things were studied. Then in a fluidized bed gasifier, one problem is, because it is always agitating inside, it generates a lot of fines. So they get carried along with fuel gas. These fines also carry some carbon. So unless it is recycled, the efficiency will be limited. So the fines recycle system was also using loop seal system was also tested here. Then the gas turbine, in an IGC cycle you have seen the gas turbine. The gas turbine puts a stringent specification on particulate concentration. It demands, it specifies 2 milligram per normal cubic. It's a it's almost like no dust in the gas. So this candle filter can remove those particulates up to that level. So we wanted to evaluate the performance of these ceramic candle filters, which was tested those pilot plants. Then, when you design a fluidized bed gasifier, how do you know how well it is mixing inside? So these radio tracer studies were conducted with the help of Bobak Research Center to assess the kind of mixing which is happening inside. Then GT, this gas turbine also puts very stringent specification on trace metal concentrations. So in this pilot plant, all the trace metal concentrations in a fuel gas stream were analyzed using advanced analytical techniques, so that when we offer a commercial gasifier, we can specify these trace metal concentrations to a gas turbine. Then we also try to use oxygen-enriched air to see its effect on the calorific value of the gas which is generated. So that either you can use as air-blown gasifier or oxygen-blown gasifier, depending upon the end use. Suppose if you want to go for using this fluidized bed, you want to go for chemical production or liquid fuel production, then oxygen-blown gasification will be more advantageous. Then another higher size facility is process equipment and development unit. This facility was also set up at Torpedo Division, Hyderabad. It can process about 18 tons of coal per day at an operating pressure of 11 bar. So one was the atmospheric fluidized bed gasifier with 0.75 tons. This is 18 ton per day at 11 gauge pressure. So by operating this plant, we could establish the scale-up values, how to scale up from a small scale to higher scale, and how to establish the operational reliability and other subsystems. All these were studied using this pilot scale facility. So this plant was designed with the in-house expertise, and as you have seen that cold model studies were carried out for refinement in the performance of gasifier and subsystems. Then this facility, using this facility, several distributor configurations. That is, a gasifier requires a very efficient air-steam distributor. So in literature, no information is available about this fluidized bed gasifier. So everything has to be developed from the scratch. So several distributor configurations were tried, these pilot scale facilities, and some optimum configuration was chosen based on the performance of the distributor, the gasifier. So those distributor configuration, fines recycle system, then operation methodology. This operating a fluidized bed gasifier is a very, very tough task. Maintaining the temperature at about 1000 degrees centigrade is a very challenging task, because all the time the particles are agitating. If any loss of control on temperature is there, everything will get defluidized. So evolving a very reliable operation methodology was a very challenging task in fluidized bed gasifier, and it was developed using this facility.
In other subsystems like coalfield system, ash extraction system, several different systems were tried in this facility, and some reliable subsystems were selected based on their performance. And similar to the atmospheric fluid bed gas layer, here also several tests were carried out with different distributor configuration, different startup mechanism operation methodologies, different coal types, different fines recycle system, different feeding systems. The higher size gasifier was retrofitted into this fluid bed gasifier at 6.2 megawatt. And this fluid bed 6.2 megawatt PABG gasifier was designed to process 168 tons per day at an operating pressure of 12.5 bar. And here, similar to that, all kind of operating parameters, substation performance, everything was evaluated, and now it has been operated for quite some time in IGCC mode, and about 10,000 hours of operation have been carried out in this pilot facility. This is a technology demo plan, and the process has been thoroughly established. And in parallel to this, while generating data from all these facilities, a phenomenological model was developed. So that scale up from this level to higher size scale can be done very smoothly. And this phenomenological model was also validated with the data from all these three test facilities. This is a steady state mathematical model. Using this model, we can predict the performance of a gasifier once whole characteristics, reactor configurations are given. Even this can be used for design of a gasifier also. And right now, one dynamic modeling study and gasifier is in progress in collaboration with IIT to see the transient response characteristics. That is, like when emergency condition is faced in a power plant, like suddenly power going off or suddenly compressor failing, such conditions, how the gasifier and the IGCC plant will behave, how to control, those things will be studied using this dynamic modeling study. Now, as I told you earlier, the IGCC commercial plant requires an operating pressure of 30 bar pressure. Now, all our three test facilities, the operating pressure is a maximum of 12.5 bar. So, to know how the gasifier performs at 30 bar pressure, the high pressure thermogrametric analyzer was installed in our corporate R&D division. It is basically a mini reactor, a 1-inch reactor, and here the pressure can be as high as 70 bar pressure, and temperature can be as high as 1100 degrees centigrade. So, in this facility, that how the gasification, conversion takes place by simulating the coal air steam ratios, we can conduct tests and generate data at 30 bar pressure. So, using this facility, data has been generated, and high pressure gasification kinetics have been generated using this facility. So, with this data, we can go for a commercial size IGCC gasification. Now, further R&D studies, that is how to improve the cycle efficiency further. For that, following, it is planned to carry out these these R&D studies. One is the development of medium temperature gas cleanup system. Here, once you have this medium temperature gas cleanup system, the sensible heat available in coal gas can be recovered. It can be used as it is in a gas turbine, and you can increase the efficiency. But for using the medium temperature gas in a gas turbine, you have to remove all these contaminants. So the contaminants have to be removed at that medium temperature condition. Then development of these ceramic candle filters in-house also is being taken up. And CO2 capture system also is being planned, because definitely in the future there will be restrictions on CO2 emissions. So CO2 capture system is also being planned. Then is alternative high pressure coal feeding system. Right now we are using some pressurized log hoppers with the atmospheric hopper, then pressurized hopper, then we are feeding coal to gassing. Instead, so there are some systems which can feed coal directly from pressurized hopper to gassing. So the data are not available in the literature, so we are planning to develop that system. So with this, the efficiency of the IGCC plant can go on. So now this is how our BHEL has gone up, right from small scale test facility to now this 450 to 600 megawatt IGCC is hoping to offer commercially 450 to 600 megawatt IGCC plant in the near future. Right now we are proposing this, BHEL is proposing this 182 megawatt IGCC at a customer site. In parallel, BHEL is also working out the configuration for this 450 to 600 megawatt IGCC. Well, as a summary, BHEL has developed this pressurized fluid bed gasification technology for IGCC applications and other end users. Then with further the advancements in gas turbine and hot gas cleaner system, this IGCC technology will become more competitive. And BHEL is in a position to offer these commercial size IGCC plants in the near future. Thank you for giving me a very patient hearing.
I think now, second, it's a sales pitch for our own gasification. So I'll be taking either of the role depending on the query. I wish you to have some kind of interaction. Ask this way, I hope it was not too heavy, either in content or technical. Because more of a general presentation with a few equations, of course, which is easy for you to understand rather than people like us.
Why are we using fluidized bed gasification technology? Like you were mentioning, other countries, how our coal is more suitable for fluidized bed gasification?
You see, the foreign coals, it has very less ash content. The fusion temperature is very less.
You mentioned about Chinese also doing entrained bed.
Chinese that India is a transport reactor. They transport reactor.
Okay.
Transport most fluidized bed reactor. Its temperature will be limited, 1000 degrees. But other commercially available IGCC plants elsewhere, they use inline flow gasification technology because their coals have less ash content, less fusion content. Whereas Indian coal has a higher ash content, higher fusion content. So that inline flow gasification will not be suitable. It will not be economic. You have to use 1500 degrees centigrade to fuse the ash. So you will lose a lot of thermal energy. As well as the gas which is coming out will be at 1500 centigrade. You have to cool to ambient level before admitting. So it will not be efficient. Plus, because of the high ash content, it is difficult to fuse all the ash and bring it down.
Or is the amount of steam used to produce the syngas is less, or like that?
Well, this lignite is a very reactive fuel.
Okay.
It can be used in fluidized bed gasifier.
Okay.
It will be suitable for use in fluidized bed gasifier.
Okay.
Because of the high moisture content, you have to see that is with recycle on. It can also be a good candidate for fluidized bed gasifier. Equally, as compared to a coal fuel. The thing is, you have to see, because it has high moisture content, it's coal to gas efficiency, that is conversion of chemical energy from coal to gas, and conversion maybe does, because you will spend more heat on evaporating that moisture than converting to coal gas. So the coal gas efficiency may suffer a little bit compared to the coal, but the coal which has got less moisture.
And one more thing, we are measuring ash fusion temperature as some property, like ash fusion temperature. While we are measuring exactly ash fusion temperature, we don't have any coal fusion like that. Is there anything?
No, when once you particle matter content, they all will react and go away in the form of gas.
Okay.
What is left out is only ash. So that ash at that temperature, depending upon the temperature prevailing inside the boiler, either it starts melting or it starts slagging by taking some ash particles, cold ash particles, it starts slagging. So only the ash will be left out in the boiler, the combustion. That is why you are focusing on ash.
Thank you.
I have two questions for you, sir. One is, how much does the IGCC plant cost than the conventional plants? And second is, why not India have more IGCC plants? Only very few you have mentioned. Globally, even globally, we have very, very little plants operated using this concept. Can you please tell us more about that, sir?
Yeah, see, so because IGCC plant has got other advantages like efficiency and it can emit less pollutants. But in India, there is no pollution norms to restrict them. So a conventional plant, they keep emitting more pollutants. No restriction is imposed on. If you impose restrictions on SO2, NOx, then they have to incorporate those flue gas desulfurizer and NOx reducer. That will increase the cost. And particulates. Typically, in our conventional power plant emits about 350 milligram per normal cubic. So, but because there is no pollution norm, they keep emitting. If they introduce again a cleaning device to restrict to 2 milligram, that cost also will go. So we have to on even level we have to compare the cost. But right now, because those restrictions are not there for a conventional power plant, but IGCC has to reduce those things because the GT subsystem GT will not accept higher dust loading or anything. So its cost is higher inherently. So unless those environmental emission norms are enforced, this will continue to be at a higher cost.
Like how many times it is costlier than the conventional plants?
I will step in here. Look, we are comparing again two incomparable things. See, IGCC is a developing technology. Now, when you do it the first time, all equipments are going to be costly. If you recall, the very first Nokia cell phone, way back in about 12 or 14 years, with very minimal features, cost about 8 to 10,000 rupees. Today, at 10,000 rupees, you know what is you are going to get in a phone. So, as the technology matures, the cost will come down. But that needs time. As on date, you are comparing a first of kind establishment technology with the established technology. So when you compare these two, without the emission norms, these kind of cost comparisons are skewed. So the cost is a relative term. But if you look at the plant, IGCC plant, as Mr. Krishnamurthy said, contains a gasification plant, which is a process plant, coupled to a power plant, that's a combined cycle plant. So when you look at these two, the capital cost per se is higher. That you have to agree. It's offset by the efficiency improvement of the combined cycle plant or for using the coal compared to a powerized coal technology. These are the two offsetting things. One, cost increase in the capital side for the, I'm sitting this side and versus efficiency increase of the combined cycle. These are the two things we have to compare. So at the mature technology level, maybe about 10 or 15 years from now, we can have a clear picture. But a 3 to 4% increase in efficiency is what we think at a plant level of about 450 to 600, which we have shown. makes a break even at the enhanced cost level, which is at today's cost. Even at the enhanced cost level, today's cost, a 3 to 4% efficient improvement will offset, even without emission norms. That's what we expect. Suppose you get emission norms also brought into the picture, it may further improve. I mean, these are, we can we can walk over these terminologies, but they are not giving a clear picture. The two things that are important for IGCC is, one, improved efficiency, better utilization of coal. In a cleaner environment and better utilization of carbon, IGCC gives you a better option. It is offset again by a integration of this power plant. See, a power plant operation methodology, a powerless plant, and a process plant, that is a chemical plant operation. There are two different things. A process plant requires continuous monitoring, a close call of things. Whereas a power plant talks about dynamic changes. A load change continuously has, and that has to be responded to. Now you are integrating a process plant, you don't expect a load change. Once you establish a process plant, it continuous stream of process. That is a gas, you start generating at the same level, continuously start generating. Now you start drawing for a variable power demand. Now you have an issue. See, this understanding many don't get. That's the reason the availability and reliability growth curve, if you have seen, these are the reasons. Of course, there are other subsystem failures also. But in addition, these are the issues. So, if you take into these things, a mature technology, you are again attempting to compare with the developing technology. So, that kind of a comparison won't be correct. But, yes, IGCC technology, because the process and the power plant are integrated, it's going to be costlier. How much is costlier is that it's a different prospect. As the plants, number of plants increase, the overall cost has to decrease. So if you compare at that level, we expect a 450 to 600 megawatt should be a level where you take over the conventional plant. Again, you have heard about advanced ultra supercritical. Again, an ultra supercritical, what we talk is steam turbine operating parameters. Steam turbine, what temperature steam is admitted. Even in the HR, the heat recovery steam, which are going to be generated in IGCC plant, that can drive a ultra supercritical steam turbine generator. Steam generation characteristics to match the AUS ASC capabilities. Again, that's going to be a next phase of IGCC development. You will be wondering why IGCC, we talk so much, has not caught on. See, the fuel cost in the Middle East, the oil cost as it grew up, coal cost slowly increased, utilization of coal, gasification came into existence. Then America, which is the pioneer in these things, put a stop on all these things, because coal plants also. Now they got a cheaper fuel now, shale gas, shale oil, shale recovery. So that again has put a block in coal gasification with respect to America. Whereas in India, we are doing coal. How best we use the coal is going to be looked in many ways. So we do hope gasification. Any specific point I have missed?
In addition to IGCC plant, because of the higher efficiency, your CO2 emission per megawatt of power generated is less. So, for a plant which emits less CO2, some carbon credit will be given to them. So, if that kind of policy is also implemented, then that can be added as an additional gain from this cost can be subtracted from the total cost, and you can compare. That kind of thing, move is also carbon credit.
You please give me explain about the Ragon tax and the allocation.
Give me that data.
So I need some short.
They give some index. So, pole to pole, that the swelling will vary. So, they index